Who would have thought that Germany would ever be criticised for not sending enough tanks to fight Russia? But this is the world of today, and this is what all the fuss is about. The Leopard 2 tank, of late a household name amongst armchair generals. Fast, fuel-efficient, deadly and much coveted by Ukraine. The fact that Germany is still dragging its heels on sending the Leopards is as mysterious as the mannequin with the shades on the front of this one. That's what they were all trying to figure out today. NATO's defense ministers and their allies huddling at America's Ramstein Air Base near Frankfurt. Still out in the cold, a vexed-looking German defense minister. His predecessor was sacked for incompetence only on Monday. In the room, a polite encounter with the Ukrainian defense minister, facilitated by the most powerful man here, America's Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, the man in the middle.
This is not a moment to slow down. It's a time to dig deeper. The Ukrainian people are watching us. The Kremlin is watching us. And history is watching us.
But increasingly, Ukraine's lasting defense involves Russia's defeat. And these Soviet-era tanks used by the Ukrainians near the front line in Bakhmut won't do the job that the German tanks are famous for. But instead of sending some to Ukraine, as many had hoped, the German defense minister today told the accusing microphones that Berlin would conduct an audit of tank stocks before making a decision.
The impression which has been created at times that the Allies have closed ranks and that Germany is on the outside, that impression is wrong.
But is it? Many in the German Reichstag would beg to differ, especially those who matched their recent applause for President Zelensky with a willingness to send German tanks. And that includes the Green Party, former pacifists who are now hawks in the ruling coalition. One of them told me that she thought Berlin's audit of tanks was a dangerous smokescreen.
If there is one country in Europe where Germany should stand by and which Germany should support, this is definitely Ukraine. That's, from my perspective, there's no reason not to send these German battle tanks there.
Do you think the German government, especially Olaf Scholz, is from the Social Democrat Party, which has that tradition of Ostpolitik, of engagement with Russia, do you think they're particularly scared of Russia, of Vladimir Putin?
None of the other partners is really impressed by those announcements or statements of Putin. So I think it was very much targeted towards the German society or the German public. The result is bad. It is one of the blackest days or most black days in the German security policy.
American M1 tanks. Berlin has also said it'll only send its tanks if the Americans send theirs. But Washington claims that these gas-guzzling hulks are no good on the Ukrainian battlefield. All this tank talk is missing the bigger picture. There's Crimea. The Russians have managed to repair their precious bridge to the peninsula, but NATO increasingly thinks that Ukraine should seize this territory back, and that could be make or break for Moscow. Whoever sends what tanks, NATO is getting more bogged down in the quagmire of Ukraine, almost a year after all this started. Not with troops, but with equipment. And who knows where that will lead.
Well, just before we came on air, I spoke to Vadim Pristaiko, the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK, and I began by asking him why the German Leopard tanks are so important to Ukraine.
Because at least there are 2,000 of them in many different nations around the European Union, and there are not many Challenger tanks outside of the Great Britain.
And so do you think you will get them in the end? What do you think is actually going on in these talks?
I believe that we will get them. It will be much easier for us to train the crews for the particular type of tanks. We don't have to have all the zoo, you know, the Leopards, the Tigers, and all of them. It will be easier to service them. It will be easier to fight with one particular sort of tank. What maybe you've seen that now in the front of the Chancellor's office there are thousands of people demonstrating and rallying and demanding that the government will allow all the nations to give the tanks to Ukraine, which will probably already pre-planned. Just the last push, political push, is needed to allow government to take this decision.
Do you think the heat on Germany is justified, given they have committed more than 2 billion euros of military aid to Ukraine. They are one of your biggest military donors.
You're totally right. Our enemy is Russia. We also have to keep it in mind. All of the rest of the nations who are supporting us are our friends. We don't want to put any additional pressure. Very unfortunately, right now, at this very important moment, when what about to counterattack, or about the Russians about to counterattack? We still have to prepare the crews. We still have to get the tanks over there. And we understand that this is a decisive moment. That's why the pressure is being done by even Ukrainian government.
There is another very alarming report in the German media today about the scale of Ukrainian losses right now. And German politicians have been told that you are losing perhaps over 100 soldiers a day. Is that correct?
These figures, I also read about them, and we are not advertising our losses, but we understand that we are losing, especially when we are attacking and counter-attacking. There is no big secret for the military experts that you have to provide, unfortunately, much more manpower to be able to attack. Each and every life is important. That's why we are so secret about the particular numbers.
And I'm sure people will understand that, but this is a costly time for you at the moment in terms of human beings.
Costly. Very painful.
And I guess that's why the tanks are so important. I mean, there was this feeling that, we were waiting for the spring and that was when the big push would be. But isn't the truth that now the heavy fighting is going on right now, and that's why it's so costly to both sides?
There are at least two reasons why these tanks are important, why the European or Western tanks are important. The first part is that's the decisive point where the UK provided first out of all of our partners the attacking sort of the weapon which allow us to counterattack. Everything else which was provided allowed us to defend our land. Now we have to switch to another mode, counterattacking mode. And what is also important, we have thousands of tanks, but we need tanks on different level. We have to have sophisticated tanks. The smaller Red Army cannot win the bigger Red Army. We have to get much better. Means better equipment, better trained people, and better intelligence. Now we're resolving the issue of equipment.
We've also heard much about fears of a big Russian push come the springtime, possibly from the north as well. Yet at the same time, we're hearing Ukraine wants to retake Crimea. Is that also what these tanks might be used for?
The best defense is offense, right? So that's what we want to do. We have total right to reclaim our territory back. Nothing better is invented so far than tank to go on the land. We need planes, but we are not on the level of discussion about the planes yet.
Ambassador, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, I'm joined now by the German MP, Alexander Müller. He is defence policy spokesman for the Liberal FDP party, which is part of the coalition. Could you explain what the calculation is in terms of both Germany sending its own tanks and allowing other countries with German tanks to send them to Ukraine?
The first thing I think would be that we repair our old tanks before we take some from the Bundeswehr, and to allow those countries who want to deliver to make it possible for them. Poland, for example, wants to send Leopard. Spain considers sending Leopard tanks. And so this would be the very first step before we send Leopards from the Bundeswehr.
So who is against this and why?
We have a coalition considering that in this coalition we have Social Democrats, the biggest party, and we have Greens and Liberals. I'm from the Liberals, and the Greens also push and urge our Chancellor to deliver the Leopards, but Social Democrats are reluctant. They are hesitating sending Leopard's main battle tanks. They don't exactly tell the reason, but they are hesitating, and we are working on that.
I mean, some people are suggesting that it's because the German government wants to restore a special relationship with Russia once this war is over. Do you think that's true?
No, I don't think that's true. The phase when the war is over is not yet considered in these decisions. I think it's two things. The one thing is we have a lot of people with pacifistic history as the Social Democrats, and we have some quite Russia-friendly people within the Social Democrats, also for historical reason. And for them, it is quite hard to, we say in Germany, to jump over their shadow to change their mind.
Are Germans fearful that Russia could attack in some way if they provide these weapons? Is that the fear?
You mean that Germans fear that Russia attacks Germany?
Yes.
No, no. Russia has no potential currently to attack NATO. An attacking of any NATO country would be an attack to the total NATO community. And Russia has about 70% of their military power within Ukraine. They have no power currently to be able to attack NATO.
Then it's a little mystifying, isn't it? I mean, you say you don't fear, people don't fear attack. You don't want to have a special relationship with Russia. What's the problem then?
Yes, we also wonder. We as liberals, don't ask me as a liberal, we push the Chancellor and say, come on, deliver. The Chancellor has one excuse. He says, we want to discuss every step with our partners. We want to go every step together with our partners. That's okay for us. It's okay to not make a deal alone. But nobody takes the initiative to talk with our partners to pool all the Leopards that would be available. That would be the step that we urge the Chancellor to do, but he doesn't. He still reacts. He said he will only deliver tanks if USA also delivers tanks, and I think that's not appropriate.
If we're in a situation eventually where Germany, Poland, the United Kingdom and others are sending heavy weapons into Ukraine, are we effectively in a situation where Ukraine is a de facto member of NATO?
I didn't get the question. If we send main battle tanks into Ukraine, and
this
Ukraine
is a big step compared
NATO,
to where we were some months ago, is my point, sending heavy weapons.
No, there's no big step.
So does that effectively push us closer to accepting Ukraine effectively as a member of NATO?
Oh, no. You see, we have already delivered anti-aircraft tank, the Leopard. We have sent heavy howitzers, the Panzerhaubitze 2000. We have sent so many stuff that is heavy weaponry, and sending a main battle tank does not make a big difference in the support that we already did for Ukraine. And the question, if Ukraine will be member of NATO one day, will be asked after they have peace with Russia. This will be when they negotiate a peace with Russia, NATO membership will be a part of this, but before they end this war, they will not be member of NATO.
Alexander Müller, thank you very much indeed.